There comes a moment in every person's life when they must draw a line in the sand and say, enough, enough of settling, enough of tolerating less than what they are capable of, enough of living beneath their potential. That moment, the one where you decide you will no longer accept average, that is the moment your life begins to change. 1. Standards are the silent architects of your life. Your life is not shaped by your goals alone. It's shaped by what you tolerate. If you tolerate lateness, you'll be late. If you tolerate debt, you'll stay in it. But when you raise your standards, you refuse to live below them. You stop negotiating with mediocrity. Your standards become the blueprint for what you attract, accept, and ultimately achieve. 2. Desire is the engine, but standards are the steering wheel. It's easy to want success. Everyone wants something. Wealth, love, purpose, but wanting is not enough. Your standards define how far you'll go. Desire lights the fire, but your standards direct the flame. If you want everything, then your standards must reflect everything. Worthy behavior. 3. Decision trumps dreaming the minute you make a decision. Not a wish, not a hope, but a resolute decision. That you will not live another day below a certain level. The world begins to shift. Circumstances bend. People respond. Resources appear. Why? Because the universe does not reward indecision. It rewards clarity backed by action. 4. Environment reflects expectation. If your room is messy, your finances disorganized, your friendships draining, you've set the wrong standard. Clean them up. Why? Because your environment is a mirror of your self-respect. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you require. And if you require excellence, you will start living in it. 5. Standards are raised through repetition, not inspiration. One motivational talk won't change your life. Repeated, disciplined action will. You become your standards by practicing them daily. No exceptions, no excuses. Excellence is not an event. It's a lifestyle, and like muscle, it grows every time you stretch it. 6. The world bows to the person who refuses to lower their standards. People will test you. Life will tempt you to settle. But stand firm, because the moment you stop lowering your standards to match your surroundings and start elevating your surroundings to match your standards, you become unstoppable. The world steps aside for the one who knows where they're going and refuses to be swayed. Closing call to action. So the question is not, what do you want? The question is, what will you no longer tolerate? Decide today. Set a new standard, and don't just raise it, live it every day, because when you do, you'll realize the life you dream of isn't out of reach. It's just waiting for you to raise your standards high enough to grab it. Your life is not shaped by what you say you want. It's not even shaped by what you hope for. It is shaped, down to the very inch, by what you're willing to tolerate. Let that truth settle in. Everything you currently have and everything you currently are is a reflection of what you've been willing to accept. You may think your goals determine your direction, but goals without standards are like a ship without a compass. It's your standards, what you refuse to settle for, that silently govern every choice you make, every action you take, and every door that either opens or stays shut. Look around your life. Look closely. The quality of your relationships, the state of your finances, your physical health, your energy levels, even the way you speak, these are not coincidences. These are outcomes of standards you've set, either by conscious design or by unconscious habit. You see, people don't get what they deserve. They get what they tolerate. And the most dangerous thing a person can do is to tolerate just a little bit less than they know they're capable of. Because just a little bit becomes a lifestyle. Miss a few workouts, and soon it's not just a break, it's your identity. Let a few bills slide, and now debt becomes normal. Allow someone to disrespect you once, and soon you find yourself surrounded by people who treat you like you're invisible. What you tolerate becomes your new normal. But there's a hidden truth behind that. The moment you stop tolerating something, the moment you raise your hand, figuratively or literally, and say, no more, that's the moment your life begins to rearrange itself. When you raise your standard, you don't just change your results. You change the kind of decisions you're willing to make. When a person truly raises their standards, they no longer need to debate whether to take the stairs or the elevator. They take the stairs because health is non-negotiable. They don't think twice about waking up early to work on their goals, because their dream is now tied to their identity. They don't have to force motivation. They're pulled by something deeper, a refusal to live beneath what they know is possible. Now, let me tell you what most people miss. They think standards are rules. They think raising standards means becoming rigid, uptight, or perfectionistic. But that's not the case. High standards are not a prison. They are a declaration of self-respect. They are the ultimate act of freedom. Because once you decide, you will no longer live below a certain level, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, you liberate yourself from the chains of mediocrity. Mediocrity is not some evil villain. It's not out there trying to ruin your life. It simply waits quietly for you to do nothing. It thrives in your comfort. It feeds on your excuses. It grows in the silence of lowered expectations. But when you raise your standards, mediocrity starves. It loses its grip on you. Raising your standards means making uncomfortable choices. It means turning off the TV and turning on your purpose. It means walking away from people who pull you down, even if they've been with you for years. It means demanding more from yourself when no one else is watching. And here's the part no one tells you. When you raise your standards, people around you will be uncomfortable. Some will resist. They'll call you too ambitious, too intense, too focused. That's fine, because their opinions aren't paying your bills, their approval isn't fueling your dream, you're not raising your standards for them, you're doing it for you, and for the version of yourself that you haven't met yet, but who's counting on you to stop settling. Your current level of life is the echo of your previous standards. If you want to change the echo, change the level at which you speak to yourself. Act for yourself and carry yourself. Set a new floor for how you live. Draw the line in the sand not just once, but every single day. There is power in saying, I don't do that anymore. Whether it's procrastination, toxic relationships, overspending, or playing small, when you say enough and you mean it, you signal to life that you're ready for something greater. You stop attracting what matches your history and start attracting what aligns with your destiny. When you change what you accept, you change what you expect. And when you change what you expect, you begin to move through the world with a different energy. A more powerful presence, one that commands attention, not with noise but with certainty. So take a moment right now, ask yourself, what have I been tolerating? What am I allowing that's beneath the life I know I'm meant to live? Identify it, then cut it off, not later, not when it's convenient, now. Let me tell you something that most people don't realize until it's far too late. Wanting something is not the same as being ready to receive it. Everyone wants something, success, freedom, love, wealth, purpose. That's easy, wanting is free, wanting costs you nothing. But the people who actually get what they want, who reach into the invisible and pull out results that others only talk about, those people hold themselves to a different standard. Desire is the spark. It's the fire in your chest that makes you restless. It makes you dream big, think beyond your circumstances, and imagine a life far beyond the one you're living now. That's a beautiful thing, but fire left alone burns out. Or worse, it burns you up without direction. That's why desire alone is not enough. You can have all the burning desire in the world, but if your standards don't match the size of your ambition, then you're chasing shadows. Think of desire as the engine. It gives you horsepower, the emotional fuel to get moving, but it's your standards, the consistent behaviors you refuse to compromise on, that steer the vehicle. Without standards, that engine goes nowhere fast. It spins, it wastes fuel, it makes noise but doesn't produce results. But when desire and high standards work together, you don't just move, you advance with purpose. Most people get excited when they think about what they want. That's natural. They write it down, they make vision boards, they talk about their dreams with friends, but the minute life tests them, the minute it asks for discipline, sacrifice, or late nights, they shrink. Not because the dream isn't real, but because their standards aren't strong enough to hold the weight of that dream. You can't build a skyscraper on a foundation made for a cabin. If your standards are built for survival, don't expect to thrive. You must upgrade your standards before life upgrades your results. Otherwise, anything you gain will slip right through your fingers. Desire says, I want financial freedom. Standards say, I don't spend more than I earn. I invest every month. I track my money. Desire says, I want to be healthy. Standards say, I move my body daily. I eat to fuel, not just to feel. Desire says, I want to build something meaningful. Standards say, I don't quit when it gets uncomfortable. I show up even when it's inconvenient. Desire without standards leads to frustration, because deep down you know you could be more, but you're not backing it up with the actions that prove it. And the mind, when it senses that gap between what you want and how you live, will turn against you. It will call you a fraud, not because it's cruel, but because it's telling the truth. You want peace, make discipline your standard. You want abundance, make excellence your standard. You want freedom, make responsibility your standard. The truth is, you don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your standards. And here's where it gets powerful. Your standards are completely within your control. You don't need permission to raise them. You don't need approval from your past or agreement from others. You just decide, and that decision, made fully and followed daily, becomes the hinge on which your future swings open. Some people wait for a crisis to change. They wait until the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of growth. But you don't need a crisis. You need clarity. You need to ask yourself, if I really wanted this, if I truly desired it, what would my daily life look like? How would I act, talk, walk, think, and decide? Then start living like that now. Don't wait for external validation. Don't wait for the right mood. Let your standards become your internal compass, the voice inside that says, we don't do that anymore. Or that's not good enough for who I'm becoming. This is the discipline of high performers. This is how people go from wanting success to owning it. The beautiful thing about raising your standards is that the world begins to rearrange itself to match them. You'll find yourself surrounded by new conversations, new challenges, new opportunities. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You became someone who expects more, and so you began to attract more. And when life tries to test you, and it will, you simply remind yourself, this is who I am now, this is what I expect from myself, this is what I allow, nothing less. That level of clarity becomes a magnet. And that magnet, charged with real desire and anchored by unshakable standards, can pull anything into your life, anything at all. Because when your desire is deep and your standards are high, the only direction left is there is a powerful moment in every person's life when they must stop asking, stop wishing, stop wondering, and simply decide. Decide that they are no longer available for the life they've been living. Decide that they will no longer wake up to the same results, the same patterns, the same excuses. Decide that the old version of themselves, the one built on hesitation and hope, has no place in the life they are stepping into. That's where real change begins, not with a wish, not with a dream, and certainly not with a lucky break. It begins with a decision, a firm, final, unshakable decision. The problem is, most people don't make decisions. They flirt with them, they dance around them, they dip their toes in the water of commitment, but never dive in. They say things like, "I'll try," or "let's see what happens," or "maybe one day." But let me tell you, trying is not deciding, wishing is not deciding, talking about it is not deciding. A real decision cuts off all other options. It creates a line between what was and what will now be. Think of any turning point in your life. Go back and examine it closely. You'll find that before the new job, the new relationship, the breakthrough, there was a moment, small, quiet, maybe even private, when you said, "That's it, I've had enough." That sentence is sacred, because in that moment, you were no longer available for the version of you that played small. People often wait for their circumstances to change before they decide to be different. They think, "Once I have more time, I'll commit." Or, "Once I feel more confident, I'll go for it." That's backward. You don't wait for confidence to make the decision. You make the decision, and then confidence comes. You don't wait for more time. You decide, and suddenly you make time. That's how power works. It doesn't respond to hesitation. It responds to certainty. Every person who has ever achieved anything great started with a clear, precise moment of decision, a line drawn in the mind, a new identity chosen, and from that identity came behavior that matched the new standard. You cannot act like the old version of yourself and expect the new life to arrive. That's not how it works. You have to decide who you are now, and then act in alignment with that person. And don't misunderstand me. Deciding doesn't mean the path gets easy. It means you've decided that no matter how hard it gets, you're staying the course. It means you're no longer looking for an escape hatch every time discomfort shows up. You're not looking to quit at the first sign of resistance. You're not looking for guarantees. You're looking for results, and you've decided you will create them. You see, a real decision is a form of spiritual power. It says to the universe, "I am no longer available for anything less than this." And once you declare that, things start to shift, doors open, people appear, ideas flow, but only after the decision, not before. Life responds to clarity. Life moves for the person who moves first. You cannot fake this kind of decision. People try, they post about it, they talk a big game, but the results don't lie. Your bank account doesn't lie. Your relationships don't lie. Your energy levels, your environment, your self-respect, all of them are mirrors. And when you truly decide to raise the bar, everything starts to reflect that decision. You don't have to know all the steps. You don't need a perfect plan. What you need is the internal shift. The fire that says, "I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what it costs. I don't care how many times I get knocked down. I'm in." That kind of resolve makes you dangerous, in the best way, because now you're no longer operating from hope. You're operating from conviction. Once you make that decision, you stop entertaining options that dilute your potential. You stop explaining your dreams to people who don't understand them. You stop bargaining with the version of you that just wants comfort. And instead you walk forward, even if it's slow, even if it's messy, you move, and the most beautiful part, one decision, one true final decision, can do more to change your life than 10 years of wishful thinking. Because everything begins to organize itself around that choice. Your mind, your habits, your circle, your direction. They begin to obey the new command you've issued. So the real question is not whether you're capable. You are. It's not whether you're worthy. You always have been. The question is, have you truly decided? Because if you have, the rest is already in motion. You want to know what a person really expects from life. Don't listen to what they say. Don't be fooled by the words they post, the books on their shelf, or the motivational quotes they share. If you want to know what someone truly expects, look at their environment. Look at their car, look at their home, look at the desk they sit at, the people they surround themselves with, and the daily chaos or clarity they walk through, because environment always reveals expectation. You cannot expect greatness and live in disorder. You cannot say you want clarity and operate in clutter. You cannot claim to value growth while spending your time around people who do nothing but pull you backward. The way you arrange your life, your space, your schedule, your habits, is a reflection of what you really believe you're worth. Your environment is not just a physical space, it is a declaration of who you are, what you accept, and what you believe is possible for you. It speaks for you long before you ever open your mouth, and it's always speaking, either to elevate you or to drag you down. People love to talk about mindset, and yes, your mindset is everything. But what you see, hear, and feel every day either strengthens that mindset or weakens it. Try building confidence in a space that's chaotic. Try believing in abundance when your surroundings scream lack. It's possible, but it's like trying to run uphill in sand. You're fighting against the very ground you're standing on. But here's the truth. You are not stuck with your environment. You are not a prisoner of your circumstances. You are the architect, and it begins with a decision, one we've already talked about, to raise your standard and require more from your surroundings. Not in some future version of your life, but right now, right where you are. Clean your space, organize your thoughts, clear the noise, throw out the things that no longer reflect where you're going. Because every object, every piece of paper, every habit of disorder tells your subconscious, this is normal, and the more you allow it, the more it becomes your identity. But the moment you raise your standard and say, I'm no longer available for this mess, for this distraction, for this emotional junkyard, you make room for clarity to emerge, and clarity is power. It allows you to focus, to direct energy instead of leaking it. It allows you to make decisions faster, to see opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. But clarity is not something you wait for. It's something you create. You create it by building an environment that reflects order, vision, and self-respect. That means you also take a hard look at your circle. Who's in your ear? Who's in your living room? Who's influencing your energy when you're not paying attention? Some people are so committed to staying where they are that they'll sabotage you the moment you try to grow. Not because they are evil, but because your growth threatens their comfort. And if your standard is to please everyone, you'll stay small forever. So you must decide, are you building a life or are you maintaining a comfort zone? If it's the life you're building, then your environment must support it. Your conversations must elevate it. Your calendar must reflect it. Otherwise, your environment becomes your excuse, a reason to wait, a reason to hold back, a reason to say, I'll start when things get better. No, you start by making things better. You set the tone. You set the rhythm. You set the boundaries. You walk into your space and say, this room supports who I'm becoming. You answer your phone and say, this voice adds to my vision. You open your laptop and say, this task serves the future I'm committed to. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need a mansion to build momentum. You don't need luxury to create legacy, but you do need intentionality. You need to stop tolerating disorder, distraction, and the subtle sabotage of low-energy surroundings. Because as long as you do, you are telling life, this is good enough for me. But you didn't come here for good enough. You didn't start this journey just to stay where you've always been. You are meant for something more, something higher. And that something begins not with what you say you want, but with what you surround yourself with. There comes a point in the journey where the line between ordinary and extraordinary is drawn, not by talent, not by luck, but by consistency. Not flashy consistency, not the kind that gets posted or praised, but quiet, disciplined, unshakable consistency, the kind that shows up even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. Because that's when the real transformation happens. Anyone can be committed when they feel inspired. Anyone can show up when the energy is high and the results are flowing. But the ones who rise, the ones who actually get what they came for, are the ones who continue showing up long after the mood has faded. They make their habits stronger than their emotions. They make their actions bigger than their excuses. You see, consistency is the great separator. It's what makes the dreamers fall away and the doers rise. Most people start strong. They start with motivation, with fire, with big declarations. But they don't last, not because they're weak, but because they haven't yet understood that results don't come from intensity. They come from repetition. Repetition is how you train the mind to obey, the body to follow, and the soul to lead. It's how you build endurance for the hard days, and how you create mastery over time. You want mastery. You don't get it by dabbling. You get it by doing the same core things over and over and over, until they become part of who you are. But here's where many fall off track. They expect to feel like it. They believe that if something is meant to be, it'll come with ease. That's a lie. The path to anything worthwhile is rarely easy. It's often filled with silence, with setbacks, with repetition that feels thankless. And if you're waiting for a pat on the back before you stay consistent, you've already lost. Consistency is not about excitement, it's about commitment. It's about making a promise to yourself and keeping it, even on the days when no one claps, when no progress is visible, when every part of you wants to quit, because it's in those moments that you build something unshakable, self-trust. And once you have self-trust, nothing can stop you. Your standards must include consistency, not perfection, not always getting it right, but the refusal to disappear, the refusal to retreat, the refusal to let one bad day turn into a bad week, or a missed habit turn into a forgotten dream. You realign, you recalibrate, and you keep going, and make no mistake, consistency doesn't mean routine boredom. It means strategic persistence. It means refining, adjusting, learning as you go. But it also means not abandoning the process just because your results haven't caught up yet. You plant the seeds, you water them, and you trust the soil, even when nothing has broken through the surface. And trust me, that moment when the results do start to show up, when the bank account begins to grow, when the energy shifts, when the phone starts ringing and the right people start arriving, that's when everyone else will say, "You're lucky," but you'll know better. You'll know that it wasn't luck. It was that you didn't stop, you didn't flinch, you didn't fall in love with the outcome, you fell in love with the process, because the process will always outlast the hype. The process is what will carry you when the world forgets your name. It's what will build your character while others are waiting to be noticed. And in that process, you become the kind of person who doesn't just get what they want. You become the kind who earns it. And here's the truth very few will tell you. Most of what you need to do to change your life is simple. Not easy, but simple. Wake up earlier, stay focused, follow through, say no to what doesn't align. Do the work, especially when it's inconvenient. None of that requires a miracle, but it does require a standard, a personal contract, a daily agreement with yourself that says, "I show up no matter what." The results may not come on your timeline, but they will come. Not because the world gave you something, but because you became someone who couldn't be denied, someone who didn't just want more, but acted like it every single day. And when you show up like that, consistently, relentlessly, with quiet confidence and unwavering discipline, Life has no choice but to respond in kind. There is a kind of power that only becomes available to you once you decide to take full responsibility for your life. Not partial responsibility, not selective ownership where you take credit for the wins and blame others for the losses. I'm talking about absolute, unapologetic, full-throttle responsibility. The kind where you stop pointing fingers, stop making excuses, and stop waiting for someone else to make things right. Because as long as you believe that something outside of you must change for your life to improve, you've given away your power. You were not born to be a victim of your circumstances. You were born to shape them. And the moment you realize that everything in your life, every result, every relationship, every piece of your current reality is a reflection of what you've either created, allowed, or tolerated, you unlock something very few people ever touch, the ability to change it all. Now, I know that's a heavy truth. It's not always easy to accept. Some people hear this and feel a sting of guilt, or even defensiveness. They want to say, "But you don't know what I've been through." And you're right, I don't. But I do know this: staying stuck in a story where you're powerless will never set you free. You can acknowledge your pain, your trauma, your disappointments, and still say, "But from this moment on, I choose to take the wheel." That choice, to own your life completely, is where the real transformation begins. Because when you take full responsibility, you no longer wait for permission to grow. You don't need someone to validate your path. You don't need the perfect timing, the perfect partner, or the perfect past. You realize the most powerful words you'll ever say are, "This is mine, I own this." And from that ownership, you begin to move differently. You stop complaining because complaints are declarations of helplessness. You stop blaming because blame is the language of the powerless. You stop waiting because waiting is a passive agreement with mediocrity. Instead, you act, you lead, you course, correct, you rise. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. You see, the world will try to convince you that your outcomes are the result of luck, background, timing, or connections. But the truth is, none of those things matter more than your level of personal ownership. Because even if you are given everything, opportunities, resources, networks, if you haven't developed the discipline to own your results, you will lose it all. Every single time. Ownership is what keeps success from slipping through your fingers, and what's beautiful about taking full responsibility is that it puts you back in control. You're no longer tossed around by the winds of life. You become the wind, you become the force that shapes your future, regardless of the starting point. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What am I going to do with this?" That question alone can change the entire direction of your life. This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about empowering yourself. When you raise your standard to take full ownership, you stop being the passenger in your own story, you become the author. And no matter how many messy chapters came before, you realize the next page is blank. And the pen is in your hand, and let me tell you something else. The moment you take ownership, your confidence begins to grow. Not the kind of confidence that comes from applause or achievements, but the kind that's rooted in self-respect. Because when you own your life, you respect yourself more. And when you respect yourself, others start to treat you differently. Opportunities find you, people respond to you, the world bends not because you asked, but because you've become someone who commands it through action. There's no freedom without responsibility. You cannot be free while blaming your parents, your boss, the government, or your past. You cannot be free while outsourcing your happiness, your health, or your wealth to anyone else. Freedom comes when you say, "If it's going to happen, it's up to me." Not in arrogance, but in alignment. Alignment with your potential, alignment with your purpose. So don't wait for someone to hand you the life you dream about. That's not how this works. Decide that it's yours, own it, build it, rebuild it if you have to. But do it knowing that the power is, and always has been, inside of you. No more waiting, no more excuses. From this point on, your results are your responsibility, completely.